and Jonathan, you can just start talking after it's done playing.
Okay.
Crave was conceived as a way to deliver our strong educational mission and our membership's desire for their continued learning. Through the Crave series, our chapter will deliver webinars and virtual meetings to deliver timely and relevant topics that are affecting our industry today.
It's about the effort that we expend to connect with people. But you have an opportunity to see people, you have an opportunity to chat with people. We may not have an opportunity to have appetizers and share a drink with each other, but we stay connected, and that's really the most important thing.
Being able to work together and learn together in a new format, a new environment, really helped us take those pre-existing relationships and friendships that I had to another level.
CoreNet has taken the leadership in these kinds of conversations for years and years, and so we're delighted to have this long-term relationship with CoreNet.
I found the CoreNet to be a great community of dedicated real estate professionals, and what it means to me is it gives me a wider network of people with whom to share ideas, to derive the best learnings, to test and experiment with things that I'm working on.
This program is all about personal growth and becoming the leader that you want to be.
CoreNet has always led the way when it comes to supporting the professional development of our members. Our roundtable discussions, our education workshops, and our professional development programs are just part of what makes CoreNet so valuable to our members. It was critical for us to find a way to still be able to facilitate all of this. Crave has provided us the platform to be just as effective and to still provide that value to our members in a virtual environment.
CoreNet not only provides a platform for different groups to come together regardless where you come from in terms of organization, but really help each member to feel like they belong in this organization.
We have a diverse membership base, and you will find that members come from all walks of life and from all over the world. However, it's still an area of focus for us to improve upon and to embrace equity, inclusion, and diversity through increasing awareness and taking action, as we know this will lead to more success for the organization and for our members.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Marin with SMMA, and I am a member of the Career Strategies and Development Committee at CoreNet, and wanted to welcome and thank everybody for joining us today. We are here to kick off this event, which is part of the 2022 Career Strategy Series. This is part 3 of Kabibi's workshop, which is Fueling Our Professional Fire, Purpose, Strengths, and Engagement, which is brought to you by the Career Strategies and Development Committee. Today's speaker, Kabibi, will review managing strengths, activating purpose, and supporting engagement. Before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is a Zoom meeting, so everyone should remain on mute until you would like to participate. The agenda, which will come up here in a second, you see before you. The presentation portion of the meeting is going to be recorded, so we are currently recording, and will be shared on the CoreNet New England YouTube channel after the event. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat at the bottom of the screen, which our team will be monitoring throughout the event. Here's a list of upcoming events. If you check out the website, you can register for any of these particular great programs that are upcoming. And if you want to stay up to date on all CoreNet New England news, events, and updates, please make sure to join us on social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn, at the various locations that are indicated here. So if you have any questions or want to learn more, please reach out to the email address, which we will be putting into the chat. As always, thank you so much to our corporate sponsors and partners. All of our events and programs are made possible by our CoreNet New England sponsors. So we always thank them very much for all of their support and help on all of these various programs that we're able to put on. So with that, I am very pleased to introduce our presenter for this afternoon, Dr. Kabibi Springs, who is with Miller Knoll. Dr. Kabibi Springs shares workplace well-being research and knowledge on behalf of Herman Miller and tends to the ergonometric and well-being needs of organizations by focusing on their most important asset, people. Dr. Springs has an extensive professional background in corporate and employee communications, relationship science, and positive psychology as a manager, consultant, and coach. A Fitwell ambassador, certified ergonomic assessment specialist with a certification in consumer psychology, Dr. Springs has spoken at several conferences hosted by the Society of Human Resource Management in Atlanta, Baton Rouge, and New England, IFMA chapters, Ergo Expo, IIDA, and CoreNet on matters related to employee well-being. And with that, I would like to turn things over to Dr. Springs.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jonathan, and welcome to everyone who's here with us today, and a special welcome to those of you who have been with me for the whole three-part series. It has definitely been a journey since December, and I'm really hoping that all of this, whether you watched it on a recording or you were there live, that it has resonated over the last few months, and that it's giving you some time to really think about some of those concepts and how they apply to your personal thriving at work and the professional goals that you're hoping to create going forward. Today, we are going to talk about and round out this series with a discussion around purpose, strengths, and engagement. So I hope that you are ready to dive into some good discussion with your peers. Our agenda today looks very similar to the way it has for the last two. We're first going to give you a quick overview about our brains and well-being and how those things work together, which have been the foundation for this three-part series, an understanding of the power that you have within you to activate. And then we're going to talk about purpose, professional purpose, and some of the trends we're seeing in the market right now that are in some ways connected to a crisis of purpose or a commitment to really defining what one's purpose is. And then we're going to talk about our strengths, which are the superpowers of our talents, and how we deploy those to our to make work not only more fulfilling, but also to make it exponentially impactful for our organizations and ourselves. And then we're going to close out with a discussion around engagement and what that means at work specifically, and how we manage our own levels of engagement. All right. So first, let's do a quick review of what we're calling an understanding that we had a decade of the brain in the 90s. And during that decade, what we learned was that we as humans have brains with neuroplasticity built into them, which is the ability to grow and stretch ourselves beyond what we may have initially thought was a particular cap on our capabilities for learning as humans, and for making both professional and personal improvements. And so knowing that we have this ability to grow, learn new things with applied practice and understanding of the wiring of our brains is one of the first things that gives us the confidence that all of these concepts we can apply to our lives in deeper ways and in more meaningful ways. And then we apply that ability to grow our brains to what we have learned over the last couple of decades about where well-being and wellness fits into our picture of a thriving life, both personally and professionally. And so wellness and well-being are tandem concepts that have some interchangeability, but at the basis, well-being is about how we feel overall about all aspects of our lives and whether or not they're progressing in a manner of our choosing and in a manner that makes us feel satisfied about the direction of our life. And then wellness are the activities that actually help to support that good feeling overall. And so for each of us, wellness and well-being are a unique set of activities and a unique set of experiences that helps to bring out that good feeling that we uniquely respond to. So it's not the same for everyone, but it may have some similar components. And what we're doing today, and we have been in the last couple of sessions, is really just sharing what we find works for us, because in that sharing, there can be a lot of new understanding of things that may not have come naturally to us without hearing someone else share their experience with it. So let's start with our first concept, which is about purpose at work. And so in the literature, purpose at work really implies an inclusive state of being, and it's a significant contributor to our individual sense that we have achieved something that is meaningful in our life. And it's important not just for an employee's mental health, but it's also one of the signifiers that you have a healthy, high-performing organization. So when we find purpose at work, it is a very personal thing. It is something that we might know about ourselves from a young child. We know some people know exactly what it is that they want to do with their life, sensing their own unique and innate talents. And for some of us, it's a journey of discovery, trying different things until we finally tap into something that really resonates with us and makes us feel very fulfilled. What we also are realizing that for many people, there has been kind of a misalignment with their sense of purpose and what it is that they do for work on a regular basis. And so some of the things that we're seeing as trends in the market right now really have to do with people having a moment to pause during the last 2 years and really reflect on whether or not their work or something about their work is delivering a sense of that North Star direction that we all seek, just a knowing that we're heading in a direction that is going to be fruitful for us. The research shows that about 62% of surveyed employees said that the pandemic had made them long for a substantial change in their life. And I think we've all probably had conversations with other people where we have acknowledged that we haven't really had a moment to pause and reflect about our life because we're constantly going and moving from one goal to the next. And so this moment just brought about an opportunity to really think about what is fulfilling, what really matters the most. We also know that people have developed a new sense of awareness and worth for themselves and the world around them. And this is prompting them to demand more personal value and purpose from both life and work. And purpose supersedes money. It may include great significant financial gain, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And sometimes work is focused, the purpose of work is found within the work itself. And sometimes the purpose is actually directed from what the work gives us, whether that is some financial means to support something that is of purpose to us, whether it's a hobby or other people in our lives. But we have different perspectives on what actually brings us purpose. So it can be very intrinsically as well as extrinsically driven. Sometimes we find it from our responsibility towards others, and sometimes it is really found in what we've chosen to dedicate our life to as far as vocation. Now, the trending topic, as we've noted that about 4.5 million people in the US voluntarily left their jobs last November. And so that great big number, what they're saying is shifting from what they consider a great resignation to more of a great reflection, just a need to really pause for a moment. Maybe we got a forced pause at the top of COVID, but now we're choosing to make a pause and really spend some time in reflection about what will give our life great value going forward. And so another thing to think about is that 85% of people believe that they do have a purpose, but only 65% of people can actually articulate what that purpose is. So we may have a sense that we know what we're here to do, but we really can't articulate that. And so some of the pause may be to get much clearer on what that vision is. And some of us know that we are actually on the wrong track, and that what we would really love to do is heading in a completely different direction. And so we choose to use that pause to plot a plan forward that would be more fulfilling. So in this first breakout, we're going to take some time to think about what we know about our purpose. If you already have a very solid purpose statement, you might use this time to reflect on how much are you able to fulfill on that purpose statement in your daily work? Is your work leading up to something that will allow you to put great purpose into something else? So you'll each have a moment to think about and reflect on that individually. And then you can share to whatever level you are comfortable with each other for the second half of the breakout on some of the things that may have bubbled up for you. There are some questions here for you to consider to prompt your thinking, such as what makes you feel energized and inspired and alive. That is one of the hallmarks of the way that people describe when they feel their purpose. That is how they describe feeling it and being able to execute on it. So before we send you into breakouts, are there any questions for me before we go into this activity? All right, Jill, I think we're ready. Or you got a chance to put some pre-thought down to come back to that later on when you can make some space for it. But I think it really, purpose is a good anchor for us. And in the resources on the worksheet, I put an HBR article that really intrigued me about purpose related to, in a historical context, to a character in history. And so I hope that you'll enjoy reading that. It really kind of drove the point home. I don't want to spoil the context of it, but I hope that you enjoy it. So now we're going to talk about the superpowers of our strengths. And I love a good conversation about strengths because I think they are one of those things that can really help us to power up our true potential and to give like the very best of us, of ourselves to our work every day, to make work engaging. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But if you're not familiar with the way that Gallup defines strengths and the power of the way they work best, our talent is always our natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. So these are the things that people probably told you over the years. You're just so naturally good at that. Like you don't even really have to think about it. If mathematics is your thing, you see equations and you just add them up. You do creative things when you have a natural talent at something, you're able to get way more creative with the concepts. If it's writing, you do things with language that are amazing. And then it's also this concept of investment in those talents. So some of us may have been told or taught when we were growing up to focus on things that we were not naturally talented at. Maybe because, we won't talk about all of our parent issues because I think we all have them. But maybe we had parents who were extremely scientific and mathematically oriented. And so they kept pushing you in that direction because that's what they knew could create a very healthy and successful lifestyle. But you were a creative person and they didn't understand that part of the way that you operate. They had no context for that. They couldn't equate it to a job and making a living. And so you may have been steered in a direction that was against the grain of the way you're naturally built. But as you start to go through your education and you meet more mentors in life, surely someone has said to you, you just have a special knack for that very thing. And so this concept of being able to take those special things about us and actually put more time into them is where we get our strengths from, which is when we're practicing and investing in those talents, then we can provide a near perfect performance very continuously and consistently when we are using those strengths. And we also find ways to enhance them to a different level. So if you think about someone that you admire who has a level of mastery over something, whether that's public speaking or an instrument or a sport, it is this combination of their natural talent, the investment of practice, that really makes that strength exponentially more than what it could be if we were giving it half of our attention and instead saying, well, it's a strength, so I don't really need to focus there. Instead, I'm going to focus on these things that are extremely hard for me to do. And one of the statistics about strengths that I always remember is a really simple study about a reading test that they did amongst people. So they took some people who had natural speed reading capabilities, and they took a group of people who did not have natural speed reading capabilities. And the speed reading group, they were able to, with applied practice, they came out reading at like a 20 times higher speed reading rate. Whereas the group who did not have that as a natural capability, they only increased their performance by like 5%. So it really stuck out to me as, do I want to make okay progress on things that, one, don't really jazz me up? They're not a super strength of mine. I can spend some time applying it, making it better, but it's really not, it doesn't have the combination of passion and effort that I want. Or I can focus on this thing that I do very well and just make it the most amazing thing that uniquely comes from me. So that is my pitch on knowing your strengths and being able to apply them. Now, what Gallup finds is that only 20% of employees who work in large organizations actually feel that they are using their strengths every day in their work. So there's a lot of people who are playing to improve upon their weaknesses, or maybe just not playing in a lane that's particularly inspiring to them. So it's neither strength nor weakness. It's just not something that, that they really want to be applying themselves towards. They also say that the longer an employee stays with an organization and the higher that they climb in a traditional career ladder, the less likely they are to actually be working in their strengths. So if you think about that and the concept of mastery, so that means, great, in the beginning of our careers, we're going to apply all of this effort to becoming the best that we can be. And then we're going to do the natural movement up the ladder and use less of what it is that we are naturally good at. That also doesn't seem like a very good trade-off. So as a relator, maximizer, driven by connectedness, responsibility, and belief, those are my top 5 strengths. I can attest to you that knowing your strengths and spending time studying them, reflecting on them, and applying them to what you do on a day-to-day basis is not only extremely useful to your career goals, but it's also very useful to being agile when new things are thrown at you, because you learn how to leverage your strengths in a way that makes even the things you don't want to do or that you're not super delighted by much easier. So I spent about a year with a Clifton Strengths coach when I first arrived at Herman Miller. I knew that my soft skills were strengths, but I didn't know what they were called. And going into a sales position, I already knew how to use relationship building. I wanted to figure out how to leverage relationship building to a more powerful aspect of my career. And so that year that I spent with this coach really helped me to level up what my natural secret sauce was, and to feel very confident walking into any situation on how to use that in a way that relates to other people's strengths, and so that they viewed it as a compatible skill set, or allow me to really make some powerful partnerships. So I highly advise that if you've never done your strengths finder or some sort of strengths test, just knowing gives you a lot more confidence in knowing what you know and knowing why you don't light up at certain things when they're passed your way. All right, so let's round this out before we go into our next breakout with a conversation around engagement. So I was thinking about the term engagement, and in the research, there is a lot of emphasis on engagement and the employer's responsibility. And certainly in the climate that we're in right now, that makes sense that you would hear a lot of that kind of language, that corporations need to put more effort into making sure their employees are engaged, et cetera. But I want us to all remember that engagement really is the relationship with work, and it is a two-way street. So I think that any of you who've been in a relationship know that it doesn't work with one partner doing all of the effort. It requires two people learning to tango with each other in a way that is mutually beneficial. And it's a commitment to really making sure that the partnership flourishes. So that's using our natural abilities and our unique talents, but also really understanding the other person and what they bring to the table so that we can do that dance together. However, what I also want to make sure that we understand that just as in a human marriage, some circumstances can tend to alter the commitment of till death do us part. So we don't want to go to a point of breakdown in a relationship. What we want is to make sure that we are being agile towards each other and we're being agile towards our work. And so the organization's part is to make sure that the environment is set up as such that we can engage the way that we want to. And then our part is to communicate what we need to be engaged and also to utilize those things and deploy them so that we're delivering on that promise to our employers. Now, the Gallup analysis also reveals a really unique relationship between engagement and strengths. So people who use their strengths every day, they are 3 times more likely to report that they have an excellent quality of life. They are 6 times more likely to be engaged at work. They're 8% more productive, and they're 15% less likely to quit their jobs. So now we can understand why the conversation around engagement is hyped to such a level that it is with this many people leaving the workforce at this time and making shifts. When we have a purpose and we can articulate that, we then start to apply our strengths towards the things that keep us most engaged, which also supports our well-being. So the other thing about the literature is that well-being is typically an antecedent to engagement. They go hand in hand. If we're not feeling well, we're usually very challenged to be engaged. So going back to that responsibility on the employer, it is my belief that we all individually have the intellect and tools to manage our own engagement and work and to create the best outcomes for our well-being. During this time frame, I think it's just requiring all of us to reflect and take a minute to think about what does that look like in a holistic sense for us uniquely, because we're all very different individuals and we're going to need a different combination of things. So just as in that human commitment, having a bucket list of learning opportunities to strengthen our strengths, practicing work habits that promote healthy bodies and mindsets, building healthy relationships, and being good stewards of our financial resources all really help to support well-being so that we can stay engaged and to activate on that engagement. At its essence, what we're learning right now is that we need to focus on what matters the most. And so sometimes that's digging through a lot of stuff that used to matter, that we thought mattered, but we're finding out really doesn't matter, and really getting to the core of my 8 to 12 hours a day that I spend at work. What matters the most to me that I accomplished during those days? All right, so today,
No, I mean, Dr. Springs, this is Doug Berry. Nice to meet you, and thanks for
nice to meet you.
You too, yeah, and just great topic because it's just something that's always top of mind, but we don't take the time, I think, to think about our kind of our strengths and our purpose and how it all plays together. And then there's just a lot of in the breakouts, we learned that there's a lot of similarities between some of our experiences and challenges and our purposes. Really, we have similar purposes. Maybe a lot of us do, and it's interesting to hear and kind of think about that and think about leveraging your strengths. It's as Steve and I were talking on one of our breakouts, it's sometimes old school was that you leveraged you tried to improve upon your weaknesses and just said, oh, my strengths are my strengths, but it's good to hear, really understand what your strengths are and push them, and especially if they're tied into your purpose.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And, I hear you saying it like it just makes things easier when you're focused on your strengths. It's not as, who wants to go and work on stuff that they're not good at every day and try to make that better? It's just it's like rolling the rock uphill instead of going with the gravity. So I appreciate that very much. So just a couple of takeaways. Again, I mentioned that under the strengths section, there's a little homework in regards to your strengths and also a link to the Clifton Strengths Finder if you're interested. But here's some takeaways from this that you can consider. One is, spending time, if you haven't discovered what your purpose is, spending some time in contemplation around that. Making sure that you can articulate that, at least just to yourself, like, I know what I'm here to do. It's not necessarily for anyone else to have to know, but for you to know why I do what I do every day. And then once you have that down, making time to reflect on it. Maybe it's annually, maybe it's every year on your birthday, but I always like to make sure that my actions are still guided towards the same guidepost. And that, because sometimes we do get caught up in opportunities that look attractive, that aren't necessarily attached to our purpose. And so when we're thinking about why they seem a little unfulfilling, that could be why. Then also knowing your strengths and capitalizing on them. And when I say know them, not just be able to name them, but know like the nuances of what lies. Each strength has a very significant description and definition to it. And another thing to note is that the Gallup says that no two people yet, they've got over 12,000 people who've taken this test. No two people have the exact same strengths in the exact same order. So if you consider this like your very unique blueprint, this is the DNA of who you are as a person, figuring out how to really leverage those to your highest potential is going to be something very uniquely powerful for you. And then controlling your own engagement and well-being. Yes, our organizations have a part to play, but it's not all theirs to say how things go. So making sure that you have some things that are always on your checklist that you're doing, the tasks that need to be done, but then the tasks that are sharpening your saw, making you feel like you're getting better at something or you're accomplishing something that's super meaningful for you, even if it's not meaningful to anyone else, because those are the things that make a work day much more pleasant. All right. Well, thank you once again for allowing me to take you on this journey. This was the most fun of presentations I have done in 2022. So more of this to come. And I hope that, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to jump in here and thank you for this wonderful series. And I did put in the chat that we do have an upcoming program on Clifton Strengths. That'll be in May, Jill, May 18th, I believe is the date. So we're still working out the details, but wanted this audience to know that there's an opportunity to do a deep dive, and there'll be an opportunity for you'll have to take the assessment in advance, and then our speaker will speak to each of those strengths. So I think it's a great tie-in to this program, and just wanted everybody to be aware in case they didn't see it in the chat.
Thank you, Catherine, for reminding me of that. And
yeah, and thank you again, and thanks everybody for participating. And I'd like to give special thanks to our committee members who put this 3-part series together. Jonathan Marin, Matt Cataldo, and Brenda Boisenow, and also to my co-chair who couldn't be here today, Erin Miller. So.
Yay. Kabibi, thank you so much. It was wonderful.
You're very welcome.
As always.
Keep thriving, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.